there was a wave of romanticism, right? National romanticism, as it was called. There was a move towards this exaltation, perhaps, of your own culture and history, right? So you see this with music, you see this with literature, with paintings. You see, so a lot of the national romantic paintings that you see in galleries all over Europe, and in the US, I'm sure, there's in the art galleries there, where you see these paintings that romanticize, literally that's the use of the word national romantic, will romanticize their countries and their histories, right? Through landscapes, for example, or through cultural images. And that certainly happened in Scandinavia, where you get a lot of this huge interest in this antiquarian background, this old past time of Scandinavia. And of course, I mean, yeah, well, if I say this to Norwegians, perhaps they might disagree with me, but that there was also this, not perhaps inferiority complex, almost, not really. I mean, I'm exaggerating it here, but there was perhaps a bit of inferiority complex to a certain extent that, these Scandinavian countries that are on the periphery of Europe, periphery of the world almost, up there in the north. Hey, we also have our own mythology, like the Greeks and the Romans did, right? There's that whole, the Greek and the Roman mythology, which exploded again with the Renaissance, and that's remained over the centuries. Then the Scandinavians came, oh, look, we have our own thing. We have our own pagan mythology. We have our own stories, and they really pushed that forward, right? To put it on the same foothold as the Mediterranean world, uh, which had more prestige, perhaps you could say. But yeah, so that's one issue, that one thing that happened there, that they sort of start pushing their own history, and you see this with Wagner, for example. Yes, he's German, but it's with general Germanic culture, right? That was the idea. With Wagner doing the Nibelungen lead, the opera about the Nibelung. So yeah, so there was a movement for this, and that became popularized throughout this period. There were certainly in the 19th century onwards as well. There were movements. 19th century was very big on esoteric traditions. There were a lot of groups popping up doing like some very strange things with esoteric movements and magic and all of that. These esoteric sects and groups, and some of which started incorporating a lot of the pagan mythology from the north as well. And that seems to be the start of these neo-pagan movements, late into the 19th century and then early 20th century, and then eventually started getting blended in with the hippie culture of the 60s and 70s. It became their own movement. And then you have what you have today, essentially. Unfortunately, a lot of it, especially even in the original explosion of neo-pagan movements in the 19th century, a lot of it was very racist, unfortunately. A lot of it was very much integrated with racist ideology and anti-Semitic ideology, the idea of Christianity being an invading culture into Europe. So therefore, we have to go back to our roots because it's a Judeo-Christian culture, right? So it's very blended into anti-Semitism and racism, which some of which still exists today, I'm have to say, within neo-pagan movements. But of course, it would be unfair to say that all neo-pagans are racist because that's certainly not the truth. Um, Unfortunately, the racist ones tend to be the loudest, as they always tend to be, unfortunately. So they tend to be the one that gets most attention. But they are not representative, certainly, of neo-pagans everywhere. I have to say that because that's
Yeah,
very
true.
unfair on those who have very good intentions.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. And thanks for sharing all that. And it made me think of a couple of things. One of them being uh, Soren Kierkegaard. He was
Mm,
alive in that time that you're talking about. You're referring to when the
yes.
interest was coming back. And I remember reading somewhere that in his youth he was very fascinated by these myths before
Mm,
he sort of
mm,
shifted to theology and stuff like that.
sure.